What's up everybody, and welcome to another video. As you can see, I am downstairs today and outside, and that is because it is tutorial time. I need some good lighting, and inside just won't cut it. So we're out here and we're doing another tutorial. This time this is a user requested tutorial, so I had somebody reach out to me on Instagram and ask that I make a tutorial about the palm spin. Now, this is something that I've wanted to cover on the main channel for a while, but it's something that I just haven't had the time to do. The tutorial videos take a surprising amount of effort because I go through the process of like sitting there and figuring out exactly what I need to say. So I'll like write them out and figure out the clearest way to talk about exactly what you need to do and all that jazz. And then we need to film them, and then we need to film all the different angles with slow motion, and it's a lot. So they're actually a surprisingly large production to make our tutorials on the main channel. However, here I can just talk about it, and while the tutorials end up longer because of that, because I ramble a lot, at least you get something. So, Merry Christmas. But today we're talking about the palm spin, which is this. Now, well, if I could do it properly, it's that. Now, the palm spin is different than the palm fan. They're two different moves. The palm fan is something that's a staple of the flipper known as Assassin Flown or Ass Flow. Ass Flow is known for their palm fan, which is a very sick move. It looks like that. And essentially, all the palm fan is you do a fan, and then you let go of it and balance it in your palm for a second before grabbing it again, right? So you're doing a fan, and then you're letting it spin around in your hand, and then you're continuing flipping. And it's a very smooth move, and it's a very nice move because you can kind of pop it into a combo and whatnot. But that move is not what my palm spin is. It's actually a completely different thing. So the palm spin was taught to me, ironically, by a guy who is a little bit notorious in the Balisong community and has been on YouTube for a very long time. And he is known as Gary Cleave. And he has a whole thing that I won't get into, but just know he's a very interesting guy. And I learned about the idea of utilizing parabolics in unique ways because of some of his videos, and one of those videos was specifically about this kind of trick, which is a palm spin, okay? And so instead of it being a fan, what it actually is it's a parabolic, okay? But it's a parabolic that you're interrupting the momentum of and causing it to spin on your open palm like this. And some of the things that are nice about this version of the palm spin is you can actually do it for longer than the palm fan, right? You can do it for longer than the palm fan, and also it looks a lot more instantaneous, whereas the palm fan, you're just kind of like bringing the knife about into a fan, right? The palm spin, you start from zero, and then the knife just pops up into this fan, right? So you're just holding it, and then you're suddenly popped it up into this spin on your hand, and it looks very cool because of that. Unfortunately, that also does mean that it's hard to combo with because the palm action, requires you to stop the knife temporarily and then launch it into the spin. So it's not as smooth in a combo as the ass flow method. And you'll also notice they spin in opposite directions. So this one spins the opposite of whichever way your thumb faces. So if you did it on this hand, it would spin this way. And then if you do it on this hand, it'll spin this way. So it spins the direction that is opposite of whatever your thumb faces because you're using your thumb to activate it. Whereas the fan method can spin either way, but mainly it spins in the direction of your thumb. So it spins the opposite direction of the palm spin that I do. Okay, so now that we've got all that out of the way, let's talk about how to actually achieve this sort of thing. So what we need to do first is learn how to do a parabolic, okay? Now, what a parabolic is it's when you hold the knife in this position. Usually I hold it with the safe handle or the bite handle facing my thumb. If you do it with the bite handle facing your thumb, generally speaking, the back of the blade will be moving towards you, but you can start with either when doing this. There's a reason that when I do a palm spin, I start with the bite handle, and that's because when you finish it, you'll be holding the safe handle, right? So if you start with the bite handle towards your thumb, when you finish the move, you'll be holding the safe handle. And if you do the inverse and you start with the safe handle, you're going to be holding the bite handle at the end, so you need to be careful of that. All right, so to do a parabolic, what you're doing is essentially throwing the knife up like this, okay? So you're just holding it in your hand and throwing it up, all right? Giving it a nice toss, just straight up. And then at the same time as you give it that toss, you want to flick it, okay? And the way you're flicking it is by squeezing it between your middle finger and your thumb right here, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm taking my thumb and my middle finger, and I'm squeezing with my thumb, and then I'm twisting to release, okay? And you can see how if I just squeeze and then I twist, it like snaps, right? Pop. That snap is exactly what you're looking for. And you want to do it right around here on the knife, okay? So on a cracker rack and you've got 3 holes, it's around the second hole. It's about 1/3 of the way up the handles. You know, it'll change depending on the size of the knife that you're doing, but generally you want to pop it down near the end of the handles. If you try to do it up here, it just won't work, okay? If you try to do it near the top of the knife. So you need to do it near the bottom of the knife to get this trick to work. So now that you know that, to do a parabolic, what you're doing is you're taking this and squeezing it and popping it, and that is launching this handle specifically out like this, which causes the knife to spin around, and then it comes back together and you can catch it, okay? So you're just popping it and throwing it up at the same time, and it spins around like this and then comes back together and you can catch it like that, right? So do you see that? I'm doing the upward motion and I'm doing the pop, and when you add those two together, you get a sort of weird spinny aerial thing, and that's known as a parabolic, all right? And it's because the two different handles are making separate parabolic arcs. But they come together at a certain spot in that parabolic arc, and that's where you're catching it. Now, a good way to train this is literally just to drop it. And so if you watch what happens when I drop it, okay, you'll notice that as it's falling, there'll be a moment where the handles snap together, right? Do you see that? There's just a moment. Watch. Go, click, right there. It's the handles come together, so they fly around a bunch and then they come together suddenly. And that moment where they come together, that is the moment where you need to be there to catch it, okay? So that is what you're looking for as you're doing this. So to get that timing down, if you want to, when you initially start the trick, stand over a bed or something so you're not having to bend over and over again, but throw the knife and then wait for it to snap together where the handles snap together, and just know that that's where you're going to be catching it. The other thing to note is that however you start holding the knife, the parabolic will invert the knife and you will be holding it the opposite direction when you catch it. So if you start in a standard grip, you're going to be holding it in an ice pick grip when you finish, okay? Like that. I have a tutorial for parabolics in general on the main channel, so definitely go check that out if you need more explanation. But once you've gotten a parabolic down, then we can move into actually doing the palm spin. Now, what the palm spin is it's this same parabolic, except what you're doing is you're bringing your hand to stop the other handle, okay? So instead of letting the entire knife fly freely, you'll notice as the knife flies through the air, one of the handles kind of stays in place, right? Did you see that? That handle sort of floats in place, okay? So what we're doing is we're using our hand to keep that handle from leaving and instead just float in place on our hand, okay? So what I'm doing to do a palm spin is I have all of my fingers right here, and they're going to act kind of to catch this handle, okay? So the handle that is facing them is the one that's going to be on your palm, all right? And then the handle that's facing your thumb is going to be the one that's spinning around. So what I'm going to do is do a small parabolic, okay? So instead of giving it all the force to actually jump up, I'm just going to give it enough force to pop up. So instead of throwing it like that, I'm throwing it like this, okay? Just a little bit of force instead of a lot of force. Then you want to give it a nice and hard flick with your thumb, okay? So you're flicking it pretty hard. That is the key to this trick, is really giving it a good flick. All right, and that's between your middle finger and thumb, so you're just flicking it like that pretty hard. And so once you've gotten that, the next step is figuring out how to position your fingers properly to stop the handle from following the other handle, okay? So you'll notice what I'm doing is I'm kind of lifting my hand up into it and allowing that to sit just like that, okay? And so the idea here is you flick super hard, and that allows the knife to come up, and then I'm using my fingers that are curled here to kind of let it rest until eventually it comes to a complete stop and I can leave my hand open and let it twirl. Okay, and so you just kind of balance it there afterwards. And this is a move that happens all at once, and depending on how hard you flick it and how quickly you're doing everything will depend on how long it actually spinning in your hand. All right, and you can actually get it to spin in your hand for a pretty long period of time, but it'll really depend, you know, moment to moment how well you did the launch and how good you are at balancing it there, okay? But that's the general idea you can see. It's just giving it a nice spin like that. And you can see it actually gets a good full 2 rotations if you do it properly, which is a very, very cool thing, because I believe with the palm spin, I've only ever really been able to get like 1 good rotation. You can get a couple, but it's a lot more difficult with the palm fan. Whereas for me, the palm spin, I can get a much prettier look, in my opinion. Much cleaner. Okay, so you're doing that parabolic, and you just pop it into the parabolic, and then you leave your fingers curled to kind of catch this handle, and then you can let them go flat, okay? And so that's the main ticket of it. And it's really hard because something you'll kind of want to do initially is you're just going to want to try to do a parabolic, okay? So you might just throw it too hard and end up catching it or whatever. And so all it really is it just takes time figuring out what's the difference between this feeling of throwing it too hard for a parabolic and not throwing it enough so that you don't actually do the palm fan. It's just a balancing act, and once you find that balance point, that's when you get the exact sort of palm fan that I'm doing here, okay? So yeah, that's basically the gist of the palm spin. It's just a parabolic, but you're interrupting the momentum of the safe handle as you do it, which allows you to kind of hold it in your hand for just a moment like that. All right, now, when it falls out of your hand, how do we end the trick, right? Well, there's a couple ways. So, as with the parabolic, when you actually throw it, you just catch it in the ice pick position, and then you can go from there, right? Well, with this one, you're only going to be holding on to one of the handles at the end of the trick. There's a couple different ways it can land. It can either land this way, where it is the blade is facing you, or it can land this way, where the other handle is facing you, all right? And that just depends on how many rotations it makes in your hand. If it only makes 1 rotation, or like 1.5 rotations, it'll end up like this. And if you can manage the full rotations, then it'll end up with the blade like that, okay? Generally, the way I like to get out of the palm fan is to do a aerial out of it, which is always very fun. So I'll do a palm fan, and then I'll do an aerial like that and catch it, okay? Now, to do that, you do the palm fan, and then you just kind of throw it up into the aerial and catch it. And so you need to be able to work with the ways that you catch it, okay? Or the way that the palm fan ends, right? So you need to be able to throw it from this position or handle out position. So what I'll do is I'll go like that, and then when it's here, I'll just simply grip it with my entire hand, flick my wrist back, and then usually if it's like this where the blade is towards me, I'll do this, all right? And then I'll just flick it up and catch it. It's really just the same thing as a forward standard open into an ice pick, right? Like that, but you're doing it sideways, okay? So you're holding the knife like this, and you're throwing it like that and catching it sideways, okay? So that versus that, okay? It's the same thing, just rotated 90 degrees. So, to stitch those two together, you want to do your thing, let it fall, catch it, and then literally just rack it back, spin it around, throw it. Okay, and so at full speed, it looks like that, all right? And so what I'm doing, you'll see as it falls through, is I'm literally continuing that momentum and letting it swing so I can do this and then swing it back and catch it. All right, it's a little difficult to explain, and it's something that you just kind of have to get a feeling for, but essentially you're going to be catching the knife here, and you want to throw it again so that you can kind of catch it completely open. You can end the palm spin holding it, right? Like, that is possible. I just don't think it looks as cool because you kind of like do it and then you like cancel the momentum. I think that's like 2.5 or 1.5 turns technically that you need to do to be able to catch it open like that. And I just don't think it looks as cool as doing it like this and then throwing it into one of those. If you can get that smoothly, I just think it looks way cooler. So yeah. Okay, so now some variations of the palm spin. Once you've gotten the palm spin, you can increase the complexity of it by actually moving your hand once you have that connection made, right? So once you've gotten control of the part that's spinning, you can move that point of contact. And so something I like to do is this. What I'm doing here is I'm starting a palm spin, and then I'm moving my hand to actually carry this up and change my grip, okay? So I'm actually taking the handle and doing a palm spin and then moving the handle up with my hand into the next position, right? And that's pretty fun. Oh man, I missed it. Let's try that again. Ready? Look at that. Just like that. All right, so this is a very, very fun technique and something that's kind of difficult to learn, okay? You have to have your palm spin down pretty well. There are ways to do this, like obviously you could do it like it's just a parabolic and kind of catch it up, and you just have to throw the parabolic kind of differently, but this is not that. This is actually taking it and making sure that the handle remains in contact with your palm the entire time. And so really it is a modified palm spin that you're just rotating around 180 degrees and catching it halfway through the technique, right? I don't know, it's a very fun method of changing your grip. And it feels very, very satisfying if you actually can keep that in your palm the entire time. So you go from your palm spin, and now you can move your palm along with it and actually change your grip as you go, right? Oof. So yeah, that is the idea of the palm spin. I hope that this helped anybody out there that was looking to learn my version of it. The Astflow version is, of course, still very cool. I really do like it a lot, but that's not the one that I've put the most time into. My version is the parabolic version. And I've seen people kind of get that mistaken because the two tricks do look very similar, but the parabolic version is completely different than the Astflow version. However, there is something interesting, which is the Astflow version can be used to do this other trick that I like, that I came up with, which is a choker fan into palm fan. Okay, so you do a choker fan, and then you use the same technique that I was utilizing here, where I'm actually using my palm to kind of navigate the knife around in a circle, okay? But you're doing it backwards. So you do your choker fan, and then once you're here, you're actually navigating the knife around like this, so then it ends up spinning in your hand, okay? Ooh, it's really hard to do, and I've only barely been able to do it. I am not consistent with it, but when I get it, it's so exciting. It's such a fun move to do. But the changing over of the momentum from top to bottom, so you're essentially doing this kind of fan, and then you're you know, moving the handle around using your palm like that. It's really hard. Like it's a really, really hard thing to learn to do, because you can very easily kill the momentum from one to the other, right? Whoo, that was spicy. You know, but you can kind of see the idea of it when the few times I do get it here. It's a very interesting technique and something that I've really kind of wanted to learn for a long time. It's been an idea of mine of like being able to, ooh, that was a perfect one. Being able to do a fan down here and then a fan up here. I don't know, it just seemed really, really cool to me. So that's kind of why I learned to do that technique and came up with it. But look at that. It's really hard to do. You're essentially just going around like this, and then as it's here, using your hand to rotate it around, right? So you're doing a choker fan, and then you're letting go of the choker fan and actually bringing the knife around as it's rotating to spin this way. And that's just shockingly difficult to do without completely killing the momentum of the knife. You have to be very quick, but also time it perfectly. You can't just randomly do it quickly. It has to be at the exact right moment for both things to happen properly. You also need a lot of momentum from your choker fan, because a lot of that momentum is lost through the transition process. And so if you don't have much momentum left, by the time it's up here, you know, the fan will be stalling and it'll be running out of steam. So you really got to give it the gas in your choker fan to get a good choker fan to palm spin thing happening. So yeah. Anyways, that is the end of this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed the palm spin and variations that I was talking about here. You know, if you guys would like to see a full tutorial, definitely let me know in the comments. And also, if you'd like tutorials on anything else that I do in my flipping repertoire, please let me know. I'm very interested to keep making this. I know they're a little bit rambly. I know they're not very organized, but that's just the nature of me talking directly to the camera and trying to figure out how to explain something that is like an innate thing that I do at this point, because I've been flipping for such a long time. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. I hope you guys had a wonderful time. I know I certainly am, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.